All right. So before we do a regular podcast, just so you guys know, we kind of do also batch our podcasts ahead of time.
Yeah.
But we decided to add this at the beginning of this podcast because we think it is important to speak.
Absolutely.
On what is going on in the world right now.
It's hard to stay silent in these times, especially if you feel passionate about, the trials and tribulations that are going on in this country that we live in. If you can't tell, we're from the States, if you haven't figured that out. But yeah, we felt like before we go to a fun and lighthearted podcast, which you're going to hear after this, we wanted to address, certain things before you get into that podcast.
Yeah. So we, at least me personally, this last week was very difficult and complicated, and I didn't know how to help. So with the Black Lives Matter movement and seeking justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice and Ahmaud Arbery and countless other victims of just a systemic attack on people of color, I didn't know how to approach it.
It's hard for a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely.
But going out and looking and seeing what everybody was doing and protesting and looking for resources to donate and sign petitions and to share information. And then nobody should feel that if they want to help, that they should feel bad that they don't know how.
Yes.
We all, there's different ways to help. And that is one reason we're kind of doing this, because whether big or small, we have a platform as well. And we can also use this to raise awareness and speak and let ourselves express something that other people, you may be seeing it, but I think we can't stop, what's going on, like saying and speaking that message. I think it needs to be heard from everyone.
Yeah. For me personally, I've just how I deal with certain situations and how I deal with like how I cope with stuff, as I've even before, the death of George Floyd, I was like trying to separate myself from social media in general, from Instagram and Twitter and all those other things. And then after his, tragic murder, it's been hard for me to be on social media even more because of the people showing their stories and seeing the hardships of people and what they've had to go through. I guess it's just in my nature to live vicariously through other people. And whenever I see somebody going through something hard or expressing their hate and their like just this tough things that they've been through, it hurts me. And it's been hard for me to cope with other people. And that is not to say if there's other people that feel similarly than I do and react similarly than I do, you shouldn't feel wrong about feeling that way. If you have, that's just having empathy and feeling, that you want to these other people to feel better. And obviously, with how terrible of a situation, not the George Floyd situation, but just the systemic problem in general is just terrible. And we felt like we needed to take this podcast, even though it's a hard subject to talk about for some people, and it's a hard subject for some people to hear. And we, having this platform, we felt like we needed to express our support for Black Lives Matter, our support for certain organizations that if you want to donate and help, and just spreading awareness. Like you don't have to go out and protest if you don't want to. It all takes is a tweet or a comment or a conversation. The most important thing is that there is a conversation. That all starts with a conversation.
Yeah, we don't want to let what's going on just fade away. Like that's what everybody's out there for.
Yeah.
So doing anything that is a positive and continuing this conversation and leading to change, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's why we're doing it. You know, we have conversations and we talk about it and we allow ourselves to explore these ideas. And for those like feeling bad or seeing like everything going on, as uncomfortable as it may be, we are now starting to see truth and see, you know, there are certain things that happen locally for us in Tampa that were uncovered because of protest, and like those in the moment hurt really badly.
Yes, absolutely.
But those things lead to change and progress, and people who have very damaging beliefs, they are now out there expressing themselves as well, and we finally get to see that as well. And as much as it hurts, now we know that you know, who's in our community that is actually, you know, oppressing people.
Yes.
And who it is that aren't supportive of actual change. So everything, as you know, uncomfortable as it is, you know, we have to take as much positive and continue to do what we can.
Absolutely. I mean, if you, whatever city you're in, whatever community that you're in, if there is no, you know, organized protest, or if there is no anything organized like that, but you still feel like you want to contribute to the conversation and contribute to the betterment of, you know, people of color, if you want to organize a protest, if you want to get your friends together and do a protest, or if you want to donate, or you want to, whatever you feel compelled to do, I think, like how Chris said, it's this subject, out of other times that this topic has been brought up before, it's gone away to some people, or it's been on the back burner for some people. But this time, with the murder of George Floyd, it seemed that people feel more compelled than ever to not let this go away. So if you feel compelled, if you feel very strongly about this, don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to speak. Because when we stop speaking and when we stop expressing our opinions is when people don't take them seriously. And this is, as we all know, a very serious subject and a very serious thing that we can't let go away. We can't let this disappear. And with, you know, that, like how Chris said, we had things uncovered in our own, you know, in our own backyard that we had no idea about. And now those things were brought to light. And people that were oppressing people of color or not appreciating people of color, more each day, those people are getting outed. And I think in the long run, as hard of a time that this is, if we keep fighting and we don't be quiet and you express your voice, change can happen. It's not going to happen in a day. Yeah. It's not going to happen in a week, a month, a year, but change can happen. It's slow, but it can be powerful.
So from here, you know, we leave you guys, take with, you know, message what you will with this. We're going to leave links and information for organizations supporting Black Lives Matter. And there's also resources for your local communities as well.
Absolutely,
to help out. So, you know, get out there, you know, do what you can, research, look in, you know, keep yourself informed, and, you know.
Knowledge is power, baby.
Knowledge is power, so.
Well, enjoy this episode of the podcast. We hope you laugh in these hard times. We hope we entertain you in these hard times, because, you know, it's tough out here these days. So we hope we can bring a little bit of joy to your life. We wanted to talk about the realisms going on as well. So take care, guys. We'll see you next time. So it's finally happening. The Snyder Cut is coming out. And after Disney and Marvel sent Joss Whedon to sabotage this film, we're finally getting our version in 2021.
A little hype.
I say our version because we
hold on,
like the movie.
If you can give me 1 second. Yes! All right, sorry.
So I take it you're excited.
I'm excited for the Snyder Cut.
Please elaborate to your excitement.
Look, all right. People that have seen Justice League, hopefully you guys have seen Justice League. Maybe you didn't like Justice League. The movie before it, Dawn of Justice, BVS,
Yes,
I think was really good, especially the extended director's cut.
absolutely, yes.
And Zack Snyder had something, I don't know, he had this vision. It was this darker, grittier, somewhat just methodical like vision for what this DC extended universe was supposed to be.
Yes.
And Justice League was like the coming out party.
He approached Warner Brothers with an idea for an entire like saga. This wasn't just like hey, I'm gonna do, Man of Steel, and then I guess we'll just put Batman in there, and then we're gonna do Batman. I think he approached WB with an entire plan at stake, and it just didn't come to the fruition that he thought because of his daughter and stuff.
And you can't blame him for stepping away.
Of course not. No,
considering what happened. But to take that vision that he had and then hand it to, like you said, and what I agree with, a Disney plant in
it's exactly
Joss
what it
Whedon,
was. It's exactly what it was.
Heavily involved with Marvel.
Yes.
And Marvel being what it is, they have a big interest in not seeing DC surpass them in any way.
I agree.
Like they want all their films. Marvel wants all their films to pass any DC film.
Yeah.
So if Ant-Man and the Wasp can bury Justice League, that's a win for Marvel.
Yep.
So yeah, of course. Like conspiracy or whatever.
I mean, Joss Whedon hasn't done anything with Disney since.
And
which I find that odd.
You mean he hasn't done anything with DC?
No, even with Marvel, he hasn't gone back.
Oh, well,
after
because
Justice League,
he's in hiding.
I guess. I don't know.
They paid him a large sum of money, and he was like, "Okay, cool. I don't have to ever do anything ever again."
I think. Well, here's the thing, because here's some of the things that I want to point out. Or I want to go into with Justice League in general. We enjoyed the first version of the film.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. It had its quirks.
Yes.
Probably the worst thing for me was the Henry Cavill mustache fiasco,
which was Joss Whedon's idea,
and that's whatever, that's what it was. But other than that, a fun premise, but it wasn't supposed to be a necessarily fun movie.
No, I don't think so.
And they put in a lot of, this is very lighthearted. But I'm like,
doesn't make sense.
If you take the premise of what the movie was, you have an impending apocalypse essentially.
Yes.
Coming down upon Earth. Obviously not. This is the beginning stages.
Mm-hmm.
So Steppenwolf.
He wasn't even supposed to be the main villain. He was supposed to be Darkseid.
The main villain, and they just went in this weird direction, and I don't know. It just felt off when we saw it.
It just felt like Zack Snyder had. I mean, because we saw all the leaks with Superman wearing the black suit. We saw all the parademons and the dread that was coming with, like you said, an impending apocalypse. And they just made it seem like the stakes weren't that high, and it just seemed off. Like it seemed weird. I think because we enjoy going into films and trying to see what the director had in mind. So I think the reason we enjoyed the film more than most is we were able to see what they were trying to go for, and we appreciated it.
Well, for
the most part,
we really liked Batman vs Superman.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Even without the extended cut that came out, Batman vs Superman was a very just nuanced movie.
Yes.
So it had a lot of little details. Lex Luthor was a perfect villain.
He was
because
fantastic.
It was just that power struggle of man fighting against gods, and how he pitted Superman against Batman because of their morals about what they stood for before they ever actually interacted.
Yes.
So it was kind of a genius thing. And we see that, and we see this vision of things coming together. And then with the extended cut, we see these outside influences coming in. We see the little details about the
mother boxes,
the mother
like
boxes, the other metahumans, things like that we were like, oh man, this is like wild. Like Lex had all this information. Batman is now gonna take all this, and he sees what's coming, and he's like, yeah, we gotta be ready.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. Totally agree.
We had this kind of pseudo threat that was Superman, and we weren't prepared.
Not at all.
And then if something else were to come, we have to be ready.
Exactly.
And it's like that. It's not supposed to be this thrill ride, oh man, we're gonna go on this adventure after this.
Yeah.
No, it's more of a
we have to save the fucking planet.
We have to save the planet. There has to be this stress.
Exactly.
And I don't think I felt that stress.
I agree. No, I totally agree.
Justice League.
Totally agree.
So going from a movie that everything felt just heavier because it's not just like the goal wasn't form the Justice League, much like in the Avengers, the goal was we're going to have the Avengers unite. That's the goal.
Yeah.
The imminent threat wasn't necessarily like the thing they were afraid of. They didn't know that they were coming. Didn't know they were coming, but we knew that the goal was to, bring these guys together. Justice League was supposed to be, we don't know who these heroes are.
Yes,
that are coming. We have a threat coming. Are we going to be able to get these guys on our side in time?
Exactly. I mean, when it comes to Justice League, and because like Batman, people love to criticize Ben Affleck as this Batman's version with Ben Affleck. I think he did fantastic. He was a great Batman, in my opinion. And I've heard like people, obviously, because they're both comic book movies and comic book franchises, people are going to compare Marvel and DC and Avengers and Justice League. So it's going to happen. So people love to criticize the scene where Batman sees the future or the possible future of Darkseid coming and the world going to shit, and that being a premonition. And then people are like, oh, well, why? That doesn't make sense in the story, I guess. People love to criticize that scene. But in the scene where Iron Man sees the same thing, nobody complains about that scene.
And that's the thing. There's just this, they have to pit like Marvel versus DC. And I'm like, we don't have to do that. And then also, when you see something like that, people go, oh, this doesn't make sense in the story, but it wasn't necessarily meant for this specific story.
Exactly.
It was one of these Easter eggs that was at a forefront. Like, you're supposed to, obviously, it's not one of those things you can miss. It's in the movie.
Yeah, it happens.
But it gives you a glimpse into what this universe is like. And it's different.
And it's giving...
And then it's also a version of these superheroes that we've seen in comics that we haven't ever seen like live. We've never seen Superman look like was it Red Sun Superman?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like we got like a version of something like that where Superman is this dark character. We got a version of this future Batman that fights using guns and has thrown these morals away of like when it came to this crime fighting.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we've never seen that before. It was cool.
Exactly.
And knowing just what was coming in the future with these other movies, it's like, oh, we're going to see things that have different variations on the same tropes that we've already seen.
Yes, yeah.
And I was excited.
I was so the scene, and I remember because we all watched the movie at the same time. The scene with the Flash, that was one of the coolest things.
So good
in any superhero movie ever. They didn't have to do that,
and that's what
they didn't have to. The way that played in the story was so cool, and that set the pages and everything in place for what was to come. We all freaked out when that happened.
That's what I'm looking forward to in the Snyder Cut coming in 2021, because there were things like that thrown in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what else did he have? What else was he thinking about just putting in there? He has a 4-hour cut of this movie.
Yes.
And yes, it's not something that a lot of people are going to sit through. It's not going to solve all the issues.
You heard the rumors about how it's going to be presented on HBO
Max.
Like
episodic, right?
Because he supposedly he's adding like 20, 30 minute like extra scenes, and then that's going to be like the episodic thing of it, which I find very interesting.
It's an interesting
It's like a mini series, which I find very, very interesting.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
But because I think people forget at the beginning of Justice League, when they show the original battle of the gods, there's like Hercules and Green Lantern, and that was so cool.
I love that.
That was so fucking cool. Oh my God, the fact that they we're thinking so broad of the broader universe. Like, yeah, it's like the fourth movie in the franchise. We're gonna throw it at you here. We're gonna give it to you. What do you want? We're gonna give it to you. And I think it made sense in the story. And I don't.
What ultimately happened was this movie was supposed to be this hyper jump into the extended universe. We're gonna open it up and just start letting things go.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was more kind of the end of this extended universe, where whatever we thought it was supposed to be, and again, this is without knowing what the Snyder Cut is.
Yeah.
But it ended there. Whatever was presented to us kind of just killed all the momentum. People didn't want now this next movie, or the next movies, and then they just kind of let the individual heroes and the spinoffs just do their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, DC was kind of forced to at that
DC,
point.
You know, once they're forced to do it, they made it work, and you know these movies were successful.
Yeah,
but I wanted to see it so bad.
It was so. You have guys know there's plenty of characters within the comic book universe that are awesome. Thanos is awesome, but Darkseid is terrifying,
frightening.
He is terrifying, and the Omega Beam is one of the most scariest powers. Period. And the fact that Steppenwolf wasn't going to be the bad guy in this film. He was going to be part of it. It was going to be Darkseid.
And it's not even all right. So Darkseid is just like an amazing, like,
terrifying
nemesis for the Justice League. And then the other like amazing thing that I thought really stood out for the Zack Snyder run of films was the way they presented the action and like the fighting. So if you ever watch the animated movies for DC, they're really good.
They're the best, man.
Like, no offense to Marvel, like they just don't hold up to that. Like the DC stuff is really good. So watching that action and like this animated like amalgamation of what the comics had, seeing it in live action,
wild.
This is one of the first times when I went, I don't know how they did it, but every time they just go out there and do these amazing set piece fights, it's better than I could have imagined.
Yep.
I'm not the biggest proponent of live action everything, but this is one of the few times where I go, that was something.
It was so cool to see Flash properly.
That was cool.
That was so cool.
It was so cool.
And their version of Aquaman with Momoa, and just his version of, he's like the Wolverine of the crew, where he's just like the big brute and he doesn't care. And that was so cool to see these versions of these characters in live action. And I know, okay, my opinion is that Joss Whedon, the way that he decided to cut the movie, where some characters' motivations weren't necessarily as clear as they should be because of the way it was cut. So, I mean, Aquaman's motivation was cut down drastically. Like Flash was, I mean, he was in and out. I feel like, this is my opinion, obviously we don't know what's exactly in the Snyder Cut, but I feel like he focused on more of the character development and the reason why they would do such things in the film, I guess. And that's what I'm hoping to see in the Snyder Cut, is when the motivations of the characters are clear, you buy in more, and it makes the movie more enjoyable. So that's what I'm thinking is the majority of the Snyder Cut. And
people are still going to be mad about it. People are still going to be like, oh, this wasn't good.
Of course.
And that's what they said about Batman vs. Superman, even after the extended cut came out.
Yeah.
This isn't going to solve everything for everybody. But for the people that really wanted it, this is huge.
Now,
like, this is Christmas.
How big is this for HBO Max?
That's the big thing. So, first of all, the Snyder Cut, like the hashtag, the meme, however you want to think about it.
The movement,
it has been since the release of the Justice League film. It's been over 2 years of just constant push for it.
Yep.
And then even the actors that were involved were like gunning for it and things like that. And we never thought we were going to see it.
No, never.
And even when we thought there may be a way to see it, it'll still be years down the line.
Yep.
So now we get to our current age, and things are obviously a wild time.
Yes,
but we have all these streaming services, and everybody's trying to get their head in the game. HBO Max coming in and saying, we have the Warner Brothers, catalog of films and all this property and IP. It's crazy that they were like, you know what? Green light it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's put. And it's not. So the other crazy thing is, so Justice League, you have the cut. It's a 2.5 hour movie, already long, right?
Yep.
What a lot of people don't understand is, all right, the Snyder cut, it's going to be a 4-hour cut,
Yes.
roughly, of this film. Most of this stuff, yes, it was shot, but none of it was like the CGI wasn't done.
Yeah, it was half
None
done.
of the
Parts
editing,
of it, yeah.
you know, like none of the post, work was done.
Yeah.
And those are the things that like take the most time with a lot of these films. Those are the things that take a lot of the money. So for them to go, we're going to put in millions,
$20 million.
$20 million to be like, all right, we're gonna finish this and we're gonna put it on HBO Max.
That's wild, dude.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Like, that's something I there's no way I would have thought about that. It wasn't even on our minds. Like, we would have never thought of the possibility. Even when HBO Max was announced, we never thought that was going to be a thing.
I never thought that they would think to do it. Like, that is like HBO Max is, when you think about what on the premise of what HBO Max is supposed to be, like, oh, they're going to be like Netflix or Hulu or something like that. But no, HBO always goes above and beyond.
Now the question is,
Always.
Are you getting HBO Max?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting HBO Max.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest.
Yes.
Like, all right, so we pivot from the Snyder cut, the big just.
Well, that's the first big thing for HBO Max. That's the first really big announcement for a lot of people.
HBO Max is really interesting, actually. So now you have things like the Snyder cut, and then you have this catalog of things coming. So you have the whole HBO catalog, period. That's
which is already amazing.
It's ridiculous. They just like a level of polish.
Do you want to go over some of our favorite shows from HBO?
Sure. It's like Game of Thrones.
No matter what you think about the last season, shut up.
It's one of the best shows ever in television ever. And if you didn't watch it, like most of you have.
I think
that's
so.
the crazy thing. Like a lot of people have watched it.
And whether you like the last season or not, it's fucking Game of Thrones.
It's
man.
Game of Thrones. It was
on.
a phenomenon. There is literally never going to be another show.
You hate the entire season because the last.
Like that.
Shut up.
It's the last of its kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Where we gather around and
absolutely
you have to watch it that night or else you're behind.
That invented Twitter spoilers. That show invented Twitter
spoilers and after shows and
yes.
breakdowns, and there's podcasts on Game of Thrones.
Yes.
There's so much.
So that in and of itself should give HBO the pass of a lot of shit because they made Game of fucking Thrones.
And then they made Westworld, which so good. And another
amazing.
It's in this realm of things we love because even the Snyder cut, right? Zack Snyder had this, influence of the Christopher Nolan Batman universe.
Yes.
And Christopher Nolan was a producer on the Man of Steel, and that's where things started for Zack Snyder in this universe. Westworld is written by Christopher Nolan. Yeah, Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, of course. There's this umbrella of things that just it's made for us.
Like-minded artists.
Ridiculously close to everything we love, close to the heart.
If you don't know, I mean, if you know Chris Nolan movies, and if you don't know, a lot of movies done by Christopher Nolan, he works with his brother Jonathan in the screenwriting and the writing of the film. So if you like Christopher Nolan's stuff, you probably like Jonathan Nolan's stuff. So watch Westworld because it's amazing.
Westworld. And then Barry with Bill Hader's just genius, drama comedy about a hitman.
Bill Hader's awesome.
It doesn't make sense, but it was actually one of the best shows I've watched too. And it's great. It's half-hour episodes and they're really, really good. And that's just a few of the things. And then there's
True Detective
season 1.
God.
Must-watch television miniseries. So good.
So good, man.
And then you have some of the old hits like The Wire and Sopranos and HBO. It's been
They're
known.
The kings,
it's
man.
the kings.
Yeah.
You can't you compete with all these other television networks and you see all these other places making their content, but HBO has just been there the whole time, all the way through. And so having that entire catalog on HBO Max, yes, it's called HBO Max, but it's only HBO in name.
Yes.
Because it's owned by Warner and AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
But they know what they have. So they're like, HBO, you know that. You know what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to use that.
Everybody, my 60-something-year-old mom knows what HBO is, and my 8-year-old niece knows what HBO is. So
HBO has been in my life for a very long time.
Long
time. And then you have other things that are coming to HBO Max that are pretty wild that definitely are going to be like big things. So Rick and Morty is going to be on HBO Max.
That's crazy.
Friends is going to be on HBO Max.
That's big, yeah.
Doctor Who.
Yep.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is been
it's not available on American Netflix.
American streaming services.
And I don't understand.
And you got to understand, for a generation of people like us that grew up watching it, and then it was on like Nick at Night, and we were still watching, like,
huge.
It was huge. Yeah, of course we want to watch that. There's nobody that's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like us. Yeah, we will watch.
I'm excited.
I'm
excited
to have it. Yeah. You have like Anthony Bourdain's show, Parts Unknown. Like there's shows that weren't out that you couldn't watch, but all these things speak to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's weird how like kind of tailor made this is for me.
I mean, we already know that there was announcing with Crunchyroll.
And then the announcement with Crunchyroll, they're gonna have all this like this more limited anime catalog, but having somebody at HBO Max go, crazy. Hey, we're gonna definitely think about this. We're gonna bring all of the things in that people like. Netflix has always been great at having something for everybody, and a lot of the streaming services have always been a little limited in some capacity. Yeah. So some of them will have certain things that you want. Some of them won't have as much children's programming. Some of them will have too much. Yeah. Some of them won't have like the older stuff. Some of them have too much just first party television. Yeah, and exactly. Not anything like where, from syndication on cable.
Or the opposite, where they have only like TV and nothing original or nothing like really captivating to like a certain audience, which I feel like, no, because there's also rumors that HBO Max is going to have a deal with Cartoon Network, which I think is awesome because we know that Netflix, I think, has a deal with Nickelodeon. So now they're going to do some stuff.
Yeah, all of these guys are competing right now.
So they're competing against each other. I'm excited to see what HBO does with Cartoon Network and see what the stuff that they do. Because like the last 5 or 10 years of Cartoon Network has been good with shows like, Adventure Time and Steven Universe and Regular Show and
so good.
All these shows that are great. And even though they're made for kids, I mean, I think the writers of those shows did a great job with having them appeal to a wider audience. So having HBO with access to that is also great. So I think it all ties together with the Snyder Cut, HBO Max. It's just all fitting together in this nice box.
I'm not even like saying it's, all right, HBO Max is going to be the be-all, end-all. But for me, as like the way I consume content, I'm never the biggest like television show watcher.
Same.
But the only shows that I do watch are on HBO. Like for the most part.
We forgot Succession.
Oh yeah, Succession's one of the. All right, quick tangent. Succession's one of the greatest like recent television shows to ever happen. Like if you. We like to call this kind of show shit on the walls.
Shit
show.
On the walls.
There's shit everywhere, and it's all over the walls. And that show came in first few episodes. Yeah, it was a little like methodical. It took its time.
Yeah,
and then it hit, and it hasn't stopped hitting.
Nope.
And now I'm like, can we just have this like forever? Inject it in my veins, please.
Fantastic.
Because it's so good.
It's
Jeremy Strong is one of the like such a good actor. Like I've never
so good
seen a guy that I go, I think I've seen his face somewhere, and go from that to being like, hey, put this guy in everything, please, because he can do it all.
Like, Macaulay Culkin's brother, I forget his name.
Kieran Culkin.
Yeah, that was his name.
Macaulay Culkin's brother is in it. So yeah, for all of you guys, you should watch it just because of that.
Awesome, fantastic writing and editing, and
so good. And then Cousin Greg. Let's just give a shout out to Cousin Greg.
Gregory.
Greg the Egg is another. Just like there's something about these characters that they just seem so real. And this show specifically, they're not supposed to be characters that we like. They're supposed to be shitty people.
No.
But I can't get enough.
Are you? What was it? Hog on the floor, or what was that called?
That episode.
That was always so wild, man.
There are. So wild. I don't know who wrote this show. Like I know who the writers are, but I'm like the mind that they had to go. did it come from? I feel like it's inspired from something because it doesn't.
The dialogue, an average person could not write the dialogue for that show. It's so good.
It's so good.
It can't. Somebody from the middle class could not have written that show because of the dialogue.
It's rich people shit.
Yeah, it's rich people shit, but it's,
it's
so good.
Fucking hilarious.
So good.
I want more.
Shit on the walls television. That's the pinnacle of shit on the wall. That and like Ozark, but that shit on the wall television, so good.
Like all these services, I do like Netflix. I like Ozark, and then Stranger Things was a phenomenon, but I haven't kept up with it myself.
I haven't seen the last season.
There, like it's one of those things where the joke is always, "Hey, whose Netflix are you using?"
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm that guy. I'm like, hey, I'm not admitting anything right now. You know, but
I mean, you can watch up to four screens with
So I'm not somebody that's going like subscribing to Netflix.
Yeah.
And then there's like Disney Plus and Hulu. I have Disney Plus because I get a free year of it and it's great and I like watching the movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if it wasn't the price that it is, which is like
$14.99, I think.
Not like for the bundle.
Oh
I think Disney Plus by itself.
It's like what, like $7 or $8.99?
Let's look it up. Disney Plus price.
Continuing on, I just finished the Clone Wars. Fuck, that shit was so good.
It's $6.99 a month.
That's good.
If
that's
it wasn't $6.99 a month,
that's a good deal, man.
I may not consider like keeping it, and so they picked a good price because they knew there were going to be limitations to it. And then Hulu, it's great. Its UI sucks.
I don't like this.
It's still a little like it has one of my favorite shows of all time, which is Scrubs.
Yeah.
But I'll be okay. But HBO Max has given a presentation of a package that I think is perfect for me.
From the combination of like their original content, which is fantastic. I mean, it's fucking HBO. So from their original content to
their movie catalog,
the movie catalogs, with the deals that they're having with these other established organizations like Crunchyroll and Cartoon Network and stuff like, and now their deal with Warner Brothers, and who knows, this could spawn. I mean, this could spawn where a DC movie or a DC property wouldn't necessarily get its own movie, and now it has a platform. It has a platform to go off of, and we could see stuff just like how Disney Plus is doing with some of the Marvel series, like the Loki stuff and Scarlet Witch. So not necessarily like movie properties, but now that they have that platform, this could be the platform for DC stuff, which would be awesome. And
I just like their attention to detail. A lot of people don't like things to be micromanaged, but I personally like at least HBO and things associated with it.
Yeah,
they definitely have a level of detail that is very important,
and I think appreciation for the appreciation
of it. So I'm like, okay, I'm in.
I mean, they did do Watchmen, which was awesome.
Watchmen was a hit,
and Watchmen was a hit, and that's a DC associated property. So I don't know. I have faith in it.
At least for right now. Snyder Cut, you're all in.
I have faith in the Snyder Cut.
We have faith in HBO Max right now.
Yes, absolutely.
I
think my final word on this is keep Joss Whedon away from DC properties.
Never. Yes, please.
And then my very final point is the Green Lantern movie wasn't that bad.
What? I think we gotta end it. All right.
Wasn't that bad.